I gotta say, this is like the most adorable thing I've ever seen in the background. What I've seen. Look at that.
I was like, oh, these ice cream sandwiches? Yeah, they're adorable. Okay.
I just can't get enough.
So having a little
Okay,
a little chit chat. Okay.
now it's time sensitive.
The ice cream is melting. Hi everyone, I'm Claire. We are in the BA Test Kitchen, and today we are making homemade ice cream sandwiches inspired by the good humor bars that you grew up with, but with a really lovely homemade cookie and store-bought ice cream. So it's a little baking, a little assembly, and the result is a really fun summertime treat. So the first step is to make the cookies. So we are making a chocolate rolled cookie that has a little bit of a cakey texture to sort of mimic that really cakey ice cream sandwich that you unwrap from the paper package. So I start with my dry ingredients. So I have 2.5 cups all-purpose flour, 3/4 of a cup cocoa powder unsweetened, I have 1.5 teaspoons kosher salt, and 1 teaspoon baking powder. So the baking powder gives the cookies a little bit of lift, a little bit of airiness, which is really nice in our ice cream sandwich. You don't want the cookie to be so hard that when you bite down, you just squish together the ice cream. The first step in building the dough is to cream together the butter and sugar. Start with 2 sticks, which is 1 cup unsalted butter, 1 cup of packed light brown sugar, and 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. I like to use a mix of brown sugar and white sugar because you get sort of a nice texture where you get some of that snappy crispness from white sugar and some chewiness from the brown. So these get mixed together really well for about 4 minutes, and I want to look for the butter to get very pale and light and fluffy. The butter is very light and fluffy. I'm going to now add the eggs. So the eggs are room temperature, which is important because cold eggs into room temp butter will make the butter harden, and then you don't get as smooth a texture. Now 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So I added quite a lot of salt. It was 1.5 teaspoons. That's because these cookies are eaten frozen. And when you eat something cold, it really kind of mutes a lot of the flavors. So I added a lot of vanilla and a lot of salt to these because I really want that chocolate to be present when you eat them, even when they're frozen. So I'm going to grab a spoon to add my dry ingredients. It is a relatively large amount of dry ingredients to butter. And that's because I don't want the cookies to spread a lot during baking. I'm going to try to get those nice, precise cut sides. And now once that's all incorporated, I'll just pulse it a couple times to combine, and then that's it. I don't want to overwork it because working this mixture at this point too much will make the cookies a little bit tough. Okay, so now I want to divide in half. I don't have to be precise at all. And half the dough just goes, roughly half the dough just goes right on the plastic. So whatever shape, when you're chilling dough, whether it's pie dough or cookie dough, whatever shape you chill it in, that's the shape it's going to want to be when you're rolling it out. I want to press it into sort of a disc/square. So there goes one. So the butter, which is now room temperature, needs time to harden. This will go into the fridge for about 2 hours until it's firm, and then I can roll it out. So I'm just going to bring in the ones we've already done.
So I'll take those.
Okay, thank you, Tommy.
And you can take these.
And here we go. So I have parchment paper here. That's going to make it a lot easier to roll out dough like this. It has the potential to soften a lot, especially in summertime. So there's parchment. I have my rolling pin right here. I really like these straight dowel style rolling pins. And here I have a little bit of all-purpose flour just for rolling. I want to flour the dough a little bit. I should say these have also been softening at room temperature for a few minutes. It's really hard to roll out something with this much butter when it's super cold because it's just going to crack. So I want to roll this out into kind of a rough rectangular shape, but I don't need precise sharp edges or anything. What's most important is that I have one large slab and that it's an even thickness. I'm going for about 1/8 inch. I want rectangles obviously for that bar-shaped sandwich, but most people don't have rectangular cutters. They're kind of hard to find. So rather than use a cutter for this, we're just going to use a ruler and a knife and cut our own shapes. So one recipe makes 15 ice cream sandwiches, which means 30 cookies. So I'm going to get about 15 cookies out of this one slab. So I'm going to cut rectangles that are 4 inches long, 1.5 inches wide. For 15 cookies, I'll cut it into a 5x3 grid. So that means 12 inches by 7.5 inches. In this direction, we're going to cut it into, what did I say, 5? 5 across. Now, long ways, I have 3 cookies, so every 4 inches. So now I'm gonna line up these marks that I made on all sides. I'm just using a long chef knife, which is easier because you can get nice long cuts. If you have a pizza cutter, you can use that too. Here we have my grid all cut. I'm gonna get rid of these scraps. So again, 15 cookies per slab for 15 sandwiches total. I will chill these while I roll out the second disc of dough. Okay, yeah, so you can see that the dough has hardened. I'm gonna use a fork to prick in several places and make that classic sort of like good humor bar shape. So I prick in the middle and then 2 on either side. I do think it actually helps the cookies bake a little bit more evenly. It gives kind of a place for some steam to escape, and it just also lends that really classic ice cream sandwich look. These are ready to go into the oven, 350 for
12 to 15 minutes.
For 12 to 15 minutes, and I'm looking for them to be baked pretty much all the way through and firm around the edges. So they're already cooled. Just to prepare them for the ice cream, all I'll do is turn over half of them, and these will be the bottoms of the sandwich, and these will be the tops. Okay, this recipe uses exactly 4 pints of ice cream for 15 sandwiches. Now, because I think it's a little more fun and you get some neat flavor combinations, I'm using 2 different kinds, so 2 pints of each. What we're going to do is create sort of a 2-tone ice cream sandwich. In the same way that we cut out our cookies, I'm also going to cut out the shapes of the ice cream so that they fit onto the sandwiches. So I'm going to basically work this ice cream into a mold. I'm using ice cream flavors that have contrasting colors and also but are complementary in flavor. So I have green tea, which is a really, really vibrant green color, and then vanilla, obviously, is white. Just as an opportunity to have a couple flavors going on at the same time. I like to take it out of the pint and cut it up into big pieces. The idea here is to use like a spatula or a wooden spoon to stir this ice cream into a smooth mixture, and a really good visual cue for this is it's going to look like a thick cake batter. So not melted, still really cold, but totally smooth. So here I have a 13x9 pan that is lined with a couple of layers of plastic wrap, and it was in the freezer, so it's important that the pan has had time to get cold. And if you have a metal 13x9, I recommend using that because metal cools down really fast and things will freeze solid in it faster than if you use glass. So now that it's all in here, I use this offset spatula to spread this ice cream into an even layer. The more even you have it, that means you'll just get that nice clear line in between the 2 flavors when you cut the sandwiches to assemble. So that looks good. This should go back into the freezer so that it can harden again and the ice cream will solidify. And then I'm ready to do the exact same thing with my second flavor. So back into the freezer. So vanilla, which is a nice complement to the kind of like earthy flavor of the green tea. Exact same process. And now I'm ready to bring out the slab of ice cream that's been hardening. All right, so here's that green tea. You really want to do this step the day before you assemble. So this whole recipe really benefits from a couple days of prep, because at this stage, once the second flavor is on, you really want to let it have a good long while in the freezer to freeze totally solid. So this is really best on the day before. You can leave it in the freezer overnight and then assemble the next morning. After this is frozen solid, and we'll bring in a swap for that, we're going to unmold it, cut the shapes, and you'll see that they'll be on those exposed cut sides. You'll get kind of that cross section, and you'll see the 2 flavors stacked on top of each other. If you are pressed for time or you just don't feel like dividing this into 2 steps, you can just take 4 pints of ice cream of all the same flavor, do the softening, put everything into the pan, and just let it freeze. Okay, into the freezer, and just for the sake of this video, we're going to bring in one that's already frozen and assemble. Okay, here's my frozen slab. I'm going to cut it into the exact same dimensions as I used to cut the cookies. I do want to work quickly because, especially in a kitchen that's a little bit warm like this, it will start to melt pretty quickly. So I'm going to bring these over here. So this side is 12 and then 7.5. So I'm going to cut this into 3 by 5. All right, so now everything's cut. All I want to do is assemble, and I'm using this little offset spatula to lift off the ice cream, place it on top of the sandwiches. So it is the same dimensions as the cookie, but the cookie spread a little bit in the oven, so you get what is kind of a little bit of a lip on the end of the sandwiches, and then just kind of gently press to adhere. So here's the thing. You do all that work, make the cookies, you do the ice cream slab, but then you can't eat them because they should really, really rest overnight. And here's why. when you let the ice cream sandwiches sit in the freezer, the cookie will pull some of the moisture out of the ice cream and will hydrate. That just means when you bite into the cookie, it's soft enough that you can cleanly bite through without compressing the sandwich and kind of squeezing out the ice cream. So I know it's tempting to assemble them and eat them right away, but you really want to let them sit overnight because the ice cream needs to have a chance to harden and the cookies need to have a chance to soften. Here they are. So our homemade Good Humor style ice cream sandwiches. These have been hanging out. So should I take a bite? Very soon. What I said before about how the cookies have a lot of salt and a lot of vanilla, it really helps pull that chocolatey flavor out of the cookie. You get that little bit of salt, which helps offset all the sweetness. I love that you can kind of customize it according to any flavors of ice cream that you like. And then another fun thing, which I just got excited and took a bite before I showed you this, is that you can take the sides and like pat sprinkles into them. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna grab sprinkles. I have some. What? Should we do that? Okay. Hold on. No, I got it. I need sprinkles. And all you do is take the sandwich, and because you have these nice flat cut sides, you can kind of press the sprinkles onto the sides. I love kind of these like pastel colors. It's really, really fun. You can use like crushed pretzels, any kind of chopped up candy. You can dip them in like a little bit of melted chocolate or something, white chocolate, anything kind of in that like nostalgic ice cream truck vein. So there you have it. Maybe we want our test kitchen friends to come and try them. Hey, Brad, do you want us a little bite?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris?
Sure.
Yeah, right?
Reminds me of my childhood. These are
Oh,
far more fancy.
Sure.
Fancy, but homemade, right? It's like,
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's like green ice cream, you know?
it's green tea, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want sprinkles?
I got excited, thought it was mint chip. You're
Come
saying
on.
it's not
No,
mint
no,
chip?
it's green tea. You'll love it. Just
Mint chip.
just try it. Just try it.
We can cut it and share.
Green
Do you
tea and
want the
vanilla?
sprinkle one?
I take a sprinkle one. Ooh,
Yeah.
I love the sprinkles.
Yeah.
man.
Brad, here,
I'll
take
take
your pick. I already bet I took a
Alright,
bite out of
ready?
that one.
Take the back.
At the count of 3, everyone?
I already ate it.
Oh, sorry.
Thoughts? Yeah, it's salty, right? Like you get that good salt from the cookie.
Yeah. It's not overly sweet. The cookie's nice.
It has a slight cakiness that we were going for because, like, you know, when you eat the Good Humor bar, like all it comes off all in
Stick
your
to your
hands.
fingers.
Yeah, the best part.
I think that you would achieve that with a little time in the freezer, wrapped in parchment paper.
It's not overnight.
Well, maybe a little more
A little
time.
more time,
Like 2 days, duh.
But you really want it wrapped in parchment. Do you want me to take it and wrap it in parchment and then you can
Well, it
unwrap
brings
it?
me back to like that. I grew up in a little lake community.
Uh-huh.
And we were, you know.
You did?
Yeah.
Have you
In
ever
the
heard that
summer.
before?
I've
And there
never
was,
heard it referred to as a lake community.
well, there was a lot of lakes and people lived there. It was a community of people with lakes, a lake community.
Okay.
It wasn't like a
Okay.
gated thing.
Okay.
Like no one cared about us.
Okay.
But they sold these at the clubhouse.
There was a clubhouse. When did the clubhouse?
No, but like, it was like a shed where like teenage people would like. It wasn't really like. Listen, I grew up poor. We're getting the wrong idea. Anyway,
Oh
this
my
is
god,
great.
I've never in my life heard that. All right, we have quite a few left over. I'll put them back in the freezer, wrapped tightly. They'll last for, you know, a good better part of a week, and we can continue to enjoy them. So, thanks for watching. Great? Okay.
Perfect.
Cool. Okay. If you're really pressed for time, you can buy some Good Humor bars and eat those. They're actually pretty good. We're going to cut that part.